Chapter 679, Spirit Medium. Seeing Robert, clad in ice armor and dragging a frost scythe, sprinting towards the stained glass window facing him, Rhea and Lugano, Camus immediately drew his custom-made revolver and aimed it ahead. At that moment, his feet turned cold, and his body froze, causing his joints to become sluggish and his wrists to tremble. From the corner of his eye, Camus observed that although Robert hadn't truly approached, the frost on the ground and the icicles on the wall had already reached him. Within a radius of 10 to 20 meters, the chill intensified, resembling the extreme north. With a swoosh, Rhea shot another arrow entwined with silver lightning. Robert didn't dodge or evade. Exerting strength in his arms, he swung the frosty scythe forward. Clang! The scythe knocked away the arrow, leaving behind a small amount of lightning that raced towards Robert's body. Amidst the sizzling sounds, Robert felt numb for a moment before continuing to sprint towards Rhea and the others. Camus was taken aback. He wasn't surprised that Robert could control the frost scythe so effortlessly and create a considerable frozen domain. Instead, he was surprised that Robert had rushed up to him and was about to enter a 5-meter range. Doesn't he know about my psychic piercing ability? Doesn't he realize that psychic piercing's effective range is 5 meters? Could it be that he has never encountered or fought a mid-sequence beyonder of the Arbiter pathway? That's true, Camus thought. No one in the patrol team or the Admiral Guard knows that Robert and Miss Amandina are beyonders. After obtaining beyonder powers during the Dream Festival, they probably don't use them much in the outside world. They can only unleash their full potential during the annual Dream Festival. There aren't many beyonder enemies to choose from. As these thoughts raced through Camus's mind, he seized the opportunity. As Robert stepped within 5 meters, his eyes lit up with brilliant lightning. Psychic piercing. 2 bolts of lightning shot out and pierced Robert's head. Robert let out a blood-curdling scream and tumbled forward, writhing in pain. He had tossed the frost scythe aside. Rhea's arrow was once again knocked to the bowstring, instinctively following Robert's roll. Fury blazed in her eyes, erupting from within her body, and her muscles bulged with the surge of power. Raging blow. This was the raging blow Rhea had accumulated through her anger. It came from Sequence 8 Folk of Rage from the Sailor Pathway. By releasing accumulated anger, her attack was greatly enhanced. Rhea was currently at this sequence, but the hunting bow in her hand was a powerful beyonder item. It was a formidable weapon she had spent all her savings on before arriving in Tizimo. It was called Thunderclap Explosion and could be used for 2 years. Soon, Robert ceased his tumbling, but he couldn't shake off the intense pain caused by psychic piercing. He froze in place for a moment. Without hesitation, Rhea watched the arrow, engulfed in dazzling lightning, and released her grip on the bowstring. The arrow shot out, but the lightning on it strangely split into 2. One continued to ensnare the arrow, while the other darted to the right. Rhea's pupils dilated, unable to comprehend why such a thing had occurred. Instinctively, she turned her head and followed the separated bolt of lightning to its destination. Then she saw Louis Barry leaning against the window, his eyes tightly shut as he slid down. A few seconds ago, upon hearing Louis Barry's words, Amandina had locked onto him with a mix of confusion and excitement. "Since you said it, I won't stand on ceremony." In her spiritual perception, Louis Barry's soul was intertwined with the sinister soul, fiercely resisting while using various parts of his body as a battlefield. However, the owner of the body was clearly at a disadvantage. Amandina couldn't separate them under such circumstances. She vaguely understood why Louis Barry had instructed her to lock onto the other party's head, an entangled soul with her spirituality. Lumion, who had Amandina use her abilities, stammered as he struggled to move his left hand in his pocket. His left hand wasn't in his trouser pocket or shirt pocket, but in his traveler's bag. After arriving outside St. Seine Cathedral and prying open the stained glass window, Lumion had inserted his left hand into his traveler's bag, ready to retrieve a suitable mystical item at any moment. He was preparing for the impending battle. If this wasn't a dream, he would likely have his hand in his left shirt pocket where Mr. K's finger was. Before being fully controlled by the Wraith, Lumion relied on the strength of a Reaper's soul to struggle and retrieve a brooch from his traveler's bag. It was the grayish-white, lightning-shaped brooch known as Fury of the Sea. Lumion gripped the brooch tightly and observed Amandina leaning against the wall. She clenched her fists and closed her eyes. His thoughts suddenly blurred, and his eyelids grew heavy. He fell asleep and slowly slid down the wall. Padre Kali fell silent in his body. The Wraith appeared to be asleep as well. It was unknown if he would fall asleep on his own or if he was affected by the negative effect of now possessing a body. Amandina opened her eyes and was delighted to see this. She wanted to praise herself. With a crackling sound, the bolt of lightning detached from Ria's arrow struck Lumion, transforming into numerous tiny electric serpents that slithered around him. This was the downside of the Fury of the Sea brooch. Even if Lumion only carried it, there was a high chance of being struck by lightning when he went out in the rain. And if he wore it without attacking anyone else, the likelihood of encountering such a thing would significantly increase. Lumion believed that since the Fury of the Sea brooch had a chance of attracting lightning strikes on a rainy day, it held a special allure for lightning. In such a situation, although it wasn't raining, what if there was another source of lightning nearby? What would happen? There was a high chance that it would attract a portion of someone else's lightning. Stimulated by the pain of the electric shock, Lumion, no longer affected by the nightmare ability, snapped out of his dream. He regained his senses, but his body remained numb. He experienced this, as did Padre Kali. As soon as the Wraith regained consciousness, he instinctively detached from Lumion's body to distance himself from the harm of the electric current. His face materialized on the nearest pane of glass, his form indistinct. Seizing the moment, Lumion donned the grayish-white, lightning-shaped brooch and retrieved his revolver from his traveler's bag. He raised his right hand, aiming at Wraith Kali, who remained in a daze. The Wraith's various colors reflected in Lumion's determined eyes. The pallor rapidly expanded in Lumion's line of sight. Bang! Lumion calmly pulled the trigger, firing a yellow bullet. As he did so, silver-white lightning flickered on the Fury of the Sea brooch, instantly entering the bullet and wrapping around its surface. This was one of the brooch's abilities. It could grant the wearer an electric shock effect with every strike. After temporarily losing the Pride armor, this had become one of Lumion's most effective methods against soul-type creatures. The yellow bullet, engulfed in silver-white lightning, struck the stained glass, shattering it and sending tiny electric currents in all directions. However, it missed Padre Kali. As Lumion pulled the trigger, the Wraith vanished from the glass and instantly leaped onto the glass-like surface of the crystal chandelier high above the cathedral. Mirror blink. On the other side, Ria's arrow struck Robert with precision, emitting a resounding bang like a heavy object colliding. Cracked. The ice armor covering Robert's body instantly cracked, shattering into fragments that fell to the ground. Under the assault of crackling electric serpents, the blurry shadow attached to his body broke free and vanished into the void. With the ice armor shielding him from most of the damage, Robert remained relatively unaffected. However, his chest tightened and his body briefly went numb. At that moment, he regretted not wearing clothes. The various ingredients needed for his spirit channeling were hidden in his clothes, such as full moon essence oil or corpse incense medication. There were very few spirits that could allow him to communicate safely without the use of materials. The one just now was the most powerful. Seeing Camus's special revolver and Ria's arrows aimed at him, Robert grew anxious. He thought of a spirit channeling method that could be completed under such circumstances. Frowning and fearing the pain, he bit the tip of his tongue. He spat out the blood from the tip of his tongue mixed with his saliva, emitting a strange sound from his throat. A pair of weathered, stone-like hands reached out from beneath the cathedral's stone bricks, seized Robert's body, and pulled him underground. At some point in time, the ground had softened like a swamp, and the blood in the air abruptly vanished. Camus's bullets and Ria's arrows arrived one after another, but they only caused sparks on the stone bricks on the ground. Spirit medium, Camus used this opportunity to revise his judgment of Robert's pathway and sequence. He's actually not from the same pathway as Miss Amandina. Hadn't he also obtained his superpowers from the Black Boulder? Camus hastily took a few steps back, retrieved a cartridge bag, and began reloading the revolver. As a member of Matani's authorities, obtaining Beyonder bullets with different effects was relatively easy, even though the patrol team wasn't wealthy or had much accumulation. After all, there was the Eternal Blazing Sun Church, the God of Steam and Machinery Church, the Church of Earth Mother, and numerous adventurers coming and going. Furthermore, the patrol team needed to be vigilant against certain branches of the Rose School of Thought and the Numinous Episcopate. They had to make targeted preparations. Camus swiftly inserted the golden purifying bullets into the revolver cylinder and snapped it shut. At that moment, Padre Kali, who had leaped onto another stained glass window, reappeared. He opened his mouth and emitted a piercing shriek that harmed one's eardrums and spirit body. Wraith shriek,